The late 80s and 90s anime. It was a different time when things were simpler. You didn't need crazy, elaborate plot lines. Just needed some good, solid action. And heads exploding. Some fun characters, and heads exploding. Something to drive the plot forward, and heads exploding. Some sort of enemy exploding. Some great style, and some great action. And yes, heads exploding. Yes, with head explosions out of the way, this is my review of SPRIGGAN, a 6-episode series that is now available on Netflix. It was done by David Production, and it's based on a manga that was first published back in 1989. It had a movie that was released in 1998, but this is a new adaptation of the series. Is it more than just exploding heads? That's what we're going to get into with my review of the series, so let's jump right into it. SPRIGGAN opens up in a semi-futuristic feeling world similar to our own, but at some point, mankind discovered these secret tablets. But these tablets warned them. It was a warning from the gods, essentially, that there's these relics, ancient artifacts throughout the world that our myths and legends are based off of, that are extremely powerful machinery that could bring harm to mankind. So in dealing with this threat, mankind creates a secret organization whose whole purpose is to find these artifacts, discover where they're at, and retrieve them or destroy them. And to protect this organization, they enlist these people known as the SPRIGGANs. And SPRIGGANs are essentially soldiers that are just the best of their class. We follow mostly Yu, and he's got this kind of exo muscle suit that gives him like superhuman strength and armor. You have other ones like Jean, who's very quick and he uses weaponry. And they'll see a lot of combat because, like I mentioned earlier, these artifacts are being discovered as being actually mythical and very powerful. So obviously, a lot of different nations and powerful political figures want these things for their own benefit, to use them as methods of control and power. You have the Crystal Skull, you have the control of Mount Fuji itself, you have Noah's Ark, all these different things in different stories that have some sort of actual relevance and logic in them as a source of power. So my thoughts on SPRIGGAN. This is, like I mentioned earlier, jokes aside, this is literally just kind of an action flick. This is very much so playing into just kind of a popcorn action flick that you would get back in the 80s and the 90s. But don't get me wrong, I do believe that the concept behind it, which is, like I said, this idea that these old tales, these old myths, these old legends are actually, they have truth to them. That they're actually tools created by the powerful societies of the past or the gods that wield a lot of power. The one I loved the most was the Noah's Ark one. It's this idea that Noah's Ark, this big ark that was created to put the living animals onto it and, you know, survive the flood, in actuality is this idea that it's this beacon, this thing that both creates and destroys. So it is the idea that Noah would get on this thing, destroy the world with its power, and then reform it, and also be a facility for creating future animals that would be sent out into the world. It's kind of fascinating in that regard. But yes, at the same time, very simple. These are just kind of excuses to have people wanting that for power, and then them have to send in the SPRIGGANs to fight against these crazy powerful guys that these other organizations are using. This sort of arms war for the artifact, but also to create the most powerful soldier to obtain that artifact. Obviously, you know, you at the very beginning having this muscle suit that protects him from all bullets, but also gives him incredible strength. And I think it does both of those things right. It doesn't do too much to make you think too much on the characters or what they're dealing with, but just gives you enough to give a driving force for the characters to get involved with some crazy action and zombie soldiers and crazy guy with wires that he can slice off people. Huge guy with a huge Gatling gun that's sliding across snow. I mean, it's just all for the fun and the sake of just these crazy action pieces that you just have fun watching. So that's all to say, don't come into this show expecting some crazy story that's going to blow your mind. It's not going for that. It's just going for dumb violence and action. But I will say, the stories are enough, and the artifacts they're dealing with are enough to make you go, oh, the what ifs. What if that was real? It kind of gives you a little bit of something at least to chew on while you're enjoying the action. A driving force for the characters. And yes, eventually getting into an internal struggle with, do you really trust the organization you're working for? Nobody is blameless. No company is going to do things just for the sake of helping the people. But the characters were fun. I really enjoyed them. They were kind of one-note characters, but at the same time, they were a lot of fun to watch. You being just kind of a hot-headed guy running out there, but at the same time, he doesn't like that he has to get himself involved with killing other people. Yes, I joked at the very beginning that heads explode a lot, but it's not as if Yu likes doing that. He really does hate these organizations sending people to him to die when he doesn't really want to bloody his hands. But he will do it for the sake of what he's doing, which is to protect the people from these artifacts. I thought Jean was really fantastic. He's, again, kind of butt heads very hard with you, and I really had a lot of fun with him on screen. And yes, Yoshino was fantastic. I absolutely loved that they brought Yoshino back for a second time. I really did love her character. She was we don't get many girls with guns sort of things in anime anymore, and so yeah, a cute girl with gun, it gets huge thumbs up from me. Her running around chucking grenades and just gunning things down was a lot of fun. Now, a show that's dumb fun with crazy action is nothing without talking about how it looks. Because honestly, if you're gonna have fun watching explosions and heads blowing up, you're gonna need some really good animation. Very mixed bag here. Spriggan is a huge mixed bag for me, and that's really in the fact that it's a lot of CGI, a lot of CGI. Most every enemy that you have in the show was mostly all CGI. All these like generic soldiers with, helmets on, everything, so you can't see their faces, and so they could just copy and paste the soldier across the screen. And yes, Yu himself, the main character, was mostly all CGI. There was very few times, it was only whenever he was in his casual outfit, something that they didn't want to render an outfit on him. Those are the only times he was actually fully animated. So, this is my biggest issue with Spriggan, is a massive clash of art styles. I love the fact that this show is bringing back an old style. The moment the first episode opens up and you have this girl, Rie, pop up on the screen, I'm like, holy crap, this is like an old 80s, 90s anime style, and I really do miss that style. It's something that has me excited for things like Urusei Yatsura and stuff like that that's coming back. Bringing back that old style of anime character designs that I do really love, I miss. But then you have that clash with modern style anime characters, you have that clashing with CGI usage. Nothing really seems consistent throughout the entire show. It really does feel like you're bringing characters from different genres of different timelines and different character designs and mashing them all in one show. You have this soldier from another country, Akatsuki, who literally looks like, I don't know, he was pulled out of Dragon Ball Z. You have a girl that's pulled from an 80s romance show. You have the main character who's pulled out of Ghost in the Shell. It's like, it just feels like a mashup of so many different art styles in one. They do kind of blend together, but it is kind of jarring at times. And like I said, having one shot with a bunch of CGI things and then one shot with 2D characters, it kind of flips back and forth and it feels very inconsistent. But that said, in a lot of the action scenes, you kind of forget. It's not really that bothersome. They actually managed to do a really good job with Yu, who is pretty much the character you're going to see the most. There was times where I had to remind myself that, oh yeah, this is CGI. David Productions at times did so well of blending the character in with a 2D style. It just feels like at other times they didn't want to put all the effort into really blending it into the scene. But overall, that aside, everything looked really good. It was a lot of fun with the action scenes. I think the only one that I didn't like was easily the later part where they had this big, huge mecha armor suit that was in this facility. And it just, the textures and stuff on the actual CGI machinery just, it clashed with everything else and it looked really bad. And yes, the heads exploding looked good. I guess pretty violent at times. But at any rate, it was a lot of fun. It was a really fun little popcorn action show. I got to turn my mind off for a little bit, even though I turned it back on every now and then with some cool concept around these myths being brought to some sort of logic and some sort of power that people can use. It was a lot of fun in that regard. But for the most part, this show was just kind of a little bit of a nostalgia trip, jumping back into the 90s and 80s and having just fun watching an excuse for characters to get blasted. It was in that regard. But again, don't go into the show expecting some crazy storyline. Don't expect some great character developments. Characters are very one note in this series, and they're a lot of fun, even still. But it's mostly just an action adventure. And for that, I really enjoyed it, just for that simple aspect there. It did it really well. But that's my review of Spriggan. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, I would appreciate if you hit that like button down below and comment. Let me know what you thought of this series if you're going to be checking it out. Additionally, if you've not already and I've earned your subscription, I would appreciate if you would subscribe to the channel so you can get all my content. I do news, reviews, first impressions, top list. If it's anime, it's pretty much here. Additionally, I would greatly appreciate if you consider supporting us through Patreon, our tips link, or our super thanks button down below. It is your support that keeps this going, and I greatly appreciate it. And y'all take care.